have done, because it's truly a remarkable feat to be around in this profession for as long as they have. Not only do they put together a great conference, but they also do great work in the community. So nice round of applause. I must admit I'm a bit surprised but flattered that I'm asked to keynote this presentation at this sort of prestigious event. I mean, normally at events like this, we usually have a dignitary, or an elected official, or somebody who's really made a difference in the community, or somebody famous to keynote this spot, like Oprah or George Clooney. And I know, by the way, I'm not the first person that you asked to do this, or the second, by the way. Actually, we're the third either, as I come to think of it. But just out of curiosity, by a show of hands, how many people have either heard of me or have no idea in the world who I am? Almost everybody. I'm humbled by that. Thank you very much. Well, I've been asked to come here today to talk about economic development here in Vincent. And I think I've been asked to talk about it because I'm going to talk to you about economic development strategies, certainly that we've done in the United States, certainly ones that have been a very positive effect for us in Washington as well. And I think we've also been asked because there's a lot of similarities between the Alberta economy and the Washington economy as well. We've also had some similar situations take place and how to deal with the downturn in the economy that's taken place. I mean, over the last several years, we've all seen business closings, we've all seen companies relocated, we've all seen population declines as well, and we've also seen a decrease in the funding for many of our social service organizations that are so important as part of an economic development strategy in those communities as well. But when you take a look at some of the successes that have taken place in Alberta, you'll recognize that you are the envy of so many other provinces, number one, and also the envy of many states in the United States as well for some of the things that you've done over the last several years. And let's start out by talking about your population, which has had a tremendous growth, as Sarah Karen mentioned. In the last couple of years, it's been a 3.45 increase. You've cracked the 4 million mark, and that's really quite an achievement as well. You've got 10 international trade offices in Alberta. 6 of them are in your primary trade zone of Asia as well. It's the exports have brought in about $93 billion in this Alberta community. You've got diverse industries as well. You've got agriculture, you've got forestry, you've got tourism, you've got financial services, you've got ICT, you've got energy. All of those are important to have if you want to have a complete economic development strategy, because those are not only just industries, they're also opportunities for people in the community as well. 2 million people employed in Alberta as well. The second lowest unemployment rate, probably under 5%. We would just dream to have it under 5% in many states in the United States as well. We've had steady growth in the ICT industry, which is certainly important and growing in every state, very competitive as well. We've got about 4,200 companies in the technology field in Alberta. They employ about 55,000 people, and they brought in about $10 billion in revenues as well. And also tourism, which is just a truly significant driver in this community. It supports about 90,000 jobs across the country, and it brought in about $5.5 billion. And by the way, this is an important point to be made, is that of that money, almost half of that comes from outside the province. And that's really, really important if you want to have development in the community. People are talking about economic development. People are reading about economic development as well, and all over. In fact, I was in my hotel room last night, and I was having trouble sleeping for some reason or another, and so I decided to do what most people do when they have trouble sleeping. They pick up a book, hope it'll make them drowsy, they'll be able to go to sleep after that. Well, unfortunately, I didn't have a book with me, so I looked around the room, saw this dresser. I went over to the dresser, I opened it up, and there was a book. I took the book out, sat down, opened it up, and the first words that I read in that book were, "And in the beginning, the earth was without form. It was void and filled with darkness." I went, ooh, this is going to be a good book. A mystery story. It was about that thick, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to finish it. So I went to the back of the book, because that's what we do in the United States. We go to the back of the book and see who did it. Anyway, so I went to the very back of the book. And the first words that I read void after that world. And from that void, and from that darkness, came prosperity. I thought to myself, this is amazing. Even in your hotel room, you have books about economic development. Much better marketing. Well, the profession of economic development may have been around for the last 2,000 years, but the profession itself is still very much misunderstood by community. And I imagine a lot of that reason is because when economic developers talk about their particular profession to people get confused with economic development and economics. And they sort of, their eyes glaze over because they remember their economics course in high school and college. Because if you ask 10 people right now to define economic development, you would probably get 10 different answers. And how can anybody be successful if everybody has a different understanding or a different interpretation of what it is that you do? You just can't have that. So what I want to do instead was, rather than trying to define economic development, what I would like to do is I'd like to ask a different question. I would like to ask, why do communities even want to do economic development? What's the number one reason why communities want to do economic development? Just shout out something right there.
Tax.
I'm sorry?
Tax.
Tax. Good answer, not what I'm looking for. What else? I'm sorry? To grow. Anything else?
Quality of life.
To what?
Quality of life.
Quality of life, yeah. Anything else? Jobs? Absolutely. Jobs. That has been the mantra for economic development for the last 50 years. And while a vital aspect of economic development, it is not the only thing that stimulates and sustains growth in an economy. We need to have a new consciousness in economic development, and that new consciousness has to say there's more to economic development than just jobs. What about the idea of raising income? What about the idea of increasing your tax base, helping local industries, developing resources, avoiding obsolescence? All of those could be reasons why communities wanted to have economic development. And they may create jobs, but they may not. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that jobs aren't important. We all know they are. First of all, they're politically feasible. That's an important point to pay attention to. Second of all, it's a measurement. And in this time of public resources, distributing money in the community, we want to make sure that our money is going to worthy causes and for good benefits as well. And the third reason is it's a good planning tool. Not just so much for the number of jobs that you're going to have, but also for the types of jobs that you're going to have as well. But if the people in your community believe that your responsibility is to create jobs, then they are setting you up for failure. Because we all know economic developers do not create jobs. Businesses do. The primary responsibility of an economic developer is to create healthy communities so that job creation can take place. And those organizations that do that are going to be the ones that survive. They're going to be the ones that survive and they're going to add value to a community, add growth to a community, add quality of life to a community. All of those things that you just said are reasons why they're going to survive. And that's what they need to understand. So what I would like to do now is I would like to see if we can in fact recognize economic development, if in fact it were like right in front of it, which is sort of what the title of this presentation is. So what I want to do is I want to see if we can find a community here. Let's pretend that this is a community, okay? This is a great looking community. Well, this is a community of people who have jobs. This is a community of people who have employees. They own their own business. They have money. There's plenty of money in your pocket right now, don't you? Sure. No way. I've got some movies here. All of this is your money. I'm going to give all of this money to you, okay? This is your money. And what I want you to do with that money, however, I want you to take it, I want you to begin passing it back and forth amongst each other, just like a community. Go ahead, we'll buy you. It's not American money or anything like that. So we'll have to talk to everybody else. Now, let me ask you, is this economic development? No, it's not. And the reason it's not economic development is because all they're doing is passing money back and forth amongst each other. This is a community that's going to have the same amount of money at the end of the day as they do at the beginning of the day. This is a community that knows how to make a dollar. This is a community that knows how to stretch a dollar, but this is not a community that knows how to create a dollar. So how do you create dollars in your community? told you to have a really good time and you come home with something, would you do it? You would. I'm the first woman that's told me no. No? 7? I can't afford you. First time you heard that? If I offered you $5, would you come with me? No? 6? 7? Oh, crap, you're Canadian. How about you? And you know what? If you take this money, I guarantee this presentation will be a lot quicker. Would you do that? Yeah. Just come with me. That's all I ask you. Take that $5. Okay, come with me. Pretty strong. Is that what you do in Canada? Now, what I want you to do is I want you to put that. This is obviously a no-growth community. You're not even passing the money back and forth. Put this money here, okay, this community right here, and just stay here just for a moment while I talk to everybody else. Now, let me ask everybody else. Is this economic development? Yeah, it is, because I'm taking money from the outside and I put it on the inside here. And by the way, anytime somebody puts money into a community, they are investing in the community. So you want to make sure they get something back for that. So you know what? For agreeing, even though I really have to seduce you to get this, tell you what, think of all the wonderful things that you're going to get that you bought from this community. First of all, a copy of my book, which has been in my basement for about 3 years now. And a box of Seattle fudge, also smoked salmon, and you're also going to get a fleece jacket of Team Canada. So all this is here for everybody. Now, there are a couple things I want you to learn from this little scenario. The first is, I didn't just hold up $5 and say, does anybody want to come with me? No, I didn't do that. That's what they used to do in the old days, and they called it smokestack chasing. And smokestack chasing was nothing more than going after a company in another area and trying to get it to relocate into your particular area. They didn't care if it was green, they didn't care if it was clean, they didn't care if it was legal, they didn't care if it was illegal, they didn't care about any of that stuff. All they cared about was relocating a business from one area to the other. Nope, didn't do that, didn't just hold up $5 a year. What I did do, however, before this presentation even began, I said to myself, who do I want to play with? Who do I want to pick on? Now, you can't do this in your personal life. It's illegal. It's called stalking. You can do it in your economic development life, and it's called targeting. And targeting is nothing more than being able to identify your best possible prospect in order to achieve your economic development goals. Now, most of the time, when people talk about targeting, they talk about the idea of going after businesses in your community. That's the idea of targeting. But just keep this in mind. There are about, each year, about 150 to 200 companies that decide to relocate from one area to the other. And, at least in the United States, there are about 15,000 to 20,000 different communities that are going after those businesses. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do business attraction or try to relocate a business. I'm merely saying keep in mind about understanding the competition, keep in mind about the time and the resources it's going to take, and realize that business attraction is not one of the easiest things to do. Okay? And by the way, when you take a look at a target, you want to make sure that you bring in a target that's not going to compete with your existing businesses. And what's the point of that? Bringing in one that competes and you lose another one? In economic development, that's called win-lose situations. And we shouldn't be doing win-lose situations in our profession. We should be doing win-win situations. The other thing is you want to make sure that it is a target that will be a part of your community too, that understands your community. They're going to be involved, they're going to volunteer, they're going to be philanthropic, they're going to be part of your festivals, they're going to be part of your events, they'll give money. In fact, I feel a little silly even talking about this to people in Alberta because people in Alberta contribute more per capita to social service organizations than anywhere else in the province. It's an amazing number. 57% of the people here contribute. 57% of the people in Alberta contribute in some way or another to some of the social services organizations. And you are great at volunteering as well. 228 million hours of volunteer work taking place in Alberta. Those are incredible numbers. Incredible. So, keep this in mind, target. The second thing I want to run from this little scenario is that I only had $7 in my pocket. She turned me down. I went to another And the reason I only had targeting, and the reason I only had $5 in my pocket was because I had done something called an economic impact analysis. And an economic impact analysis does nothing more than measures the economic impact that a target's going to have on a community. Okay? So, if you're focusing on targeting bringing families in your community, you want to make sure that you have enough teachers, enough classroom space, so that the kids can learn in a small area and learn a lot better. If you want to focus on families as well, you want to make sure that you have enough doctors and nurses and healthcare facilities as well, so that you can get into an appointment in a timely manner. If you want to focus on tourism, you want to make sure that you have enough money in the budget in order to pay to get rid of all the potholes that are going to come about because all the tourists that are going to be driving into your community. You want to make sure that you have a positive financial impact on the community and not a negative one. We hear the word incentive all the time, and we all know it's a dirty word, but we all realize that it's part of the game that we have to play. And it's okay to play that game, but you better make sure that you do not bankrupt your community. And I'm not talking about just this generation, I'm talking about the next generation as well. Okay? And the third thing that I want you to learn from this little scenario is that this woman had no idea where she was going. She had no idea what she was going to get. Did you have a good time in this community? Would you come back to this community? Of course you would. You know what? This woman looks like a shopper too. So something tells me she's going to come back to this community and spend 2 and 3 times as much money here than she did before, and probably bring her friends. And by the way, this is a person that very well could be a small business person or an entrepreneur and say, I like this community so much, I'm going to relocate my business here. Well, how's that for the business attraction? How many times have you gone into a community and said, oh, this is a great community. I bet I could live here. And so you go downtown and you walk into one of the stores and you ask the 19, 20-year-old behind the counter, what's there to do in this community? And what do they tell you? Nothing. There's nothing to do in this community. In fact, you don't even want to be in this community. You want to be somewhere else. Go to the States. Boy, that's much better environment than the one you have here. I mean, have you heard that? It's up to the economic developer to work with their businesses and get them to understand how important it is to get their employees to engage the customer and talk to them, not just about new products and services, but also about the community as well. What's going on in the community in that period of time? What's happening in the next month or so? You want to try and get the person to stay in as long as possible, because the longer a person stays in a community, the better chance you have of them spending money. Lunch there, they'll go to something in the afternoon for activities, then they'll go ahead and eat dinner there, spend the night, have breakfast, maybe take another walk downtown. It's important to recognize that engaging those customers and telling them, not just about the events and activities, but tell them about the stores down the street. Have them walk the entire downtown area and talk about the value-added products and certain stores you're selling as well. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. I'm a member of this community too. I love living in this community. It is a great community. This is a community filled with entrepreneurs. I unfortunately am not a small business person or an entrepreneur, but I do work in government. Okay. And guess what department I work for in government? Taxes. Absolutely. Yeah. But keep in mind this is a lot longer because I want to tell you the story that I did. I took your last quarterly tax payments that you paid into my department, and I said if I ever made a ton of money, I would share it with everybody in this community. So I took some of the tax dollars that you paid in the last quarter, and I took some of that money and bought lottery tickets. I bought hundreds and hundreds of lottery tickets, and before you get upset with me, let me tell you what else. I won. I won the lottery. So now, rather than everybody at this table getting, I don't know, $5, $10, $15, everybody here in this community is now going to get tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. But I don't have it on me right now. But let me ask everybody else, is this economic development? I've taken money from the outside, the lottery, and put it on the inside. Is this economic development? No, it's not. And the reason it's not economic development is because it's not a long-term infusion of wealth into the economy. What's long-term, you may ask? some people are going to think this presentation is going to be long term. But in economic development, we don't think of long term as a measurement of time. We think of it as a measure of sustainability. If you were to ask a small business person about sustainability, they'll tell you they'll be sustainable as long as they have loyal customers, as long as those loyal customers will tell their friends about the product and service they have, as long as that product and service can be innovative, it can be creative, you can add value to it, you can complement with other products and services. As long as you can do that, that business is going to continue to be sustainable. Well, it's the same way in communities. Communities have products and services as well. And what products and services are they? It's the reason why you live in a community. You live in a community because good schools, good roads, good parks, good neighborhoods, good quality of life. All of those are the reasons why you live there. And as long as you continue to provide those products and services, people will continue to stay there. But there's one thing missing in that little equation. And that one thing missing is opportunity. And opportunity comes in two forms in a community. Number one, diversity, and number two, workforce development. Now I'm going to talk about diversity. I mentioned it at the very beginning of my presentation about how diverse this community is. You recognize you can't just be a one industry town. But when it comes to workforce development, not having an acceptable workforce is an absolute deal breaker no matter how good everything else is in your community. They say that there are three types of people that are in the workforce in the community. And we call them BLTs, by the way. And the first ones are the boomerangs. And the boomerangs are those people who get educated in your community, they leave the community, they go off, they go to college, they get a job somewhere, and then they come back. The second type of person in the workforce are the lifers. Those are the people that have been in your community for their entire life. They've never left. They have the same zip code. They're going to be there when they were born, and they're going to be there when they die. Never leave. And the third one are the transplants. And the transplants are those people who recognize products and services in a particular community, recognize the opportunities, and they decide that this is where they want to go. So, if that's the case, then that means that a good portion of your workforce are going to be those people that have been educated or trained in your community. So take a good look at the kids that are coming out of school right now. If they're hardworking, if they get good grades, if they've learned a skill, they've had a mentor, participated in an intern program, competed in a business plan competition, your community is going to be sustainable. But on the other hand, if you have kids with a high dropout rate, with low test scores, never learned a skill, never had a mentor, never been part of an intern program, don't even know how to spell the word entrepreneur, your community is not going to be sustainable. Think about it. 50 years, they're going to be the backbone of your community. Let's take a look at this video for a minute.
I figure 75% to you, Mama, and 25% divided between the five of us. Gilda, Crowbar, myself, Tom, and the baby. That makes 5% for each one of us.
Billy, you're cheating yourself. If there's 25% divided among the five of you, that's 14% apiece.
Oh, no, listen, Pop. I wouldn't cheat you. You know I wouldn't. Now, look here. I'll show you. We're going to run this out here. And now, 25 divided by 5 is 5. You see, the 5 won't go into 2, well, no. But 5 goes into 25 5 times, you see.
You're wrong, Billy. Now, I'm pretty good mathematician. Now, 5 into 25, 5 won't go into 2.
No.
But 5 goes into 5 once. Now, we didn't use the 2 before, so we're going to 20 goes 4 times. 5 into 25, 14.
No, look, Pop. Now, let me prove it to you. 5 times 5. 5 plus 5 is 25.
I'm surprised you're running. I'm surprised that you're running. Now I'll show you.
your teens is not 25. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20,
21, 22.
So what do we do with those people who do not do well in school, do not do well in school, the kids who really don't care for school, but they have great capacity for learning? Well, in Washington State, we have something called workforce development programs. And in workforce development, it's nothing more than a statewide system of education and training that makes employees productive and businesses sustainable. Okay? So in the United States right now, it doesn't, where the employees, it doesn't matter whether it's military or government or private industry, they put more money in the education and training of their employees than all the colleges and universities combined. So what we really need to do is we need to truly rethink what education is. Normally when people talk about education, we always talk about the idea it's a four-year college university, and that's what we've always done. I mean, many of us have gone to college, it's been the reason why we have our jobs, things like that. But that's not the way the upcoming jobs are right now. We need to rethink and help kids learn the skills that are necessary for the jobs that are going to be in their community. I mean, in Washington State, we have a great community college system. In fact, one of our community colleges was the best community college in the country, Walla Walla. And one of the reasons they were is because they participated and worked with businesses in order to help them put programs together. They can teach skills to the next generation of workers that come in. They also were able to fit those people into, after they completed graduation, into those jobs right away also. So we want to make sure that in our case, that we pay attention to community college, pay attention to technical college systems, we pay attention to all of, in our case, 12 or 15 different workforce development programs, depending on the type of industry that we'd like to develop in Washington State. And I know you've got some good programs here with Campus Alberta, and you should be proud of those as well. But recognize those programs for working with businesses. And that's why it's so important for the economic developers to work with businesses and identify exactly what skills they needed in the future. So your community will continue to be sustainable as long as you have good education programs, not just college universities. And by the way, one of the numbers I want to say, 40% of the jobs that will be created in the next 4 to 8 years, at least in the United States, are not going to require college education, but are going to require some sort of certification. So if you want your community to be sustainable, make sure that you have good education facilities. You want to make sure that people can learn state-of-the-art tools and can grow in the industry as well, to upgrade the skills that they have, and economic developers put together businesses and education so that they can prepare for the next century of work as well. Education is not just about scholarship. It's also about successful adulthood. That's how we should approach the education of our children as well. Okay, let me go out here for a minute. Let's pretend that this box of fudge here, yellow fudge, is economic development. And I'm going to give it to the counselor here, Adam. Adam lives in this community. He has economic development. What's your name, Kyle? Kyle lives in this community as well. Can you say, by the way, that Kyle has economic development now as well? How many people remember the syllogism method of reasoning that many of us may have learned in college? Some of us probably forgot all about college, but the syllogism method of reasoning essentially states that if the first fact is true, followed by a second fact, then the third one must be true. So in other words, if I say here that Adam lives in this community and has economic development, Kyle lives in this community, therefore Kyle has economic development. Is that true? No. Who's got the fudge? Adam. Is he sharing the fudge? No. Is Kyle benefiting from it? No. What a jerk Adam is. If you want to know if you have economic development in the community, take a good look and see where the money is going. And if you have more money going out of your community than you have coming into your community, you have something called leakage. And any time a plumber, a doctor, or an economic developer uses the word leakage, that is not a good thing. So, how deal with economic leakage? Well, a lot of communities right now are doing something called buy local programs. I imagine there are a lot of communities here that have buy local programs as well. This is an interesting ad from Portland, by the way. And one of the reasons I don't like it is because it sort of gives the indication that you can buy everything you need in that particular community. And we know that's not necessarily true. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, in fact, I'm not sure if you even want to do that. I mean, if everybody bought anything just from their own community, it would sort of destroy our entire economic system. There are plenty of ways to destroy our economic system other than buy local program. So what I prefer to sort of think of this is as a think local first campaign. So this is probably all no-brainers, but let me just go over it real quickly. The first reason is because it's good for the environment. I mean, right now, a lot of communities are very environmentally conscious, and they want to have a low carbon footprint. And so if they buy things from outside the community, what happens is that your carbon footprint increases. I mean, you're getting planes and trucks to travel to your community, you use gas, you use roads, you use little popcorn things to protect the product you're buying. So if you want to be environmentally conscious, you want to have a low carbon footprint, then you want to have some local first programs so that people can buy things in the community. Money stays in the community, once again, no-brainers. Yet study after study shows that 3 times as much money stays in the community to buy something local as opposed to buying it in a big box store or a franchise. It creates a relationship economy. I mean, we're not in a relationship economy right now. We're in an anonymous-driven economy. I mean, have you heard of all the recalls that have taken place? Certainly in the United States, there are a lot of them. I don't hear a lot of recalls coming in from Alberta products and services. So wouldn't you feel a little bit more comfortable buying products in your community, in a region, or a province? Sure you would. We don't have that now. We now have, our society is so entwined. It's like a one-night stand. You buy something right here. You buy something from somebody that you don't even know, you give them money, they send you a product, and that's it. You never hear from them again. You need to have a relationship-driven economy. And finally, it makes a community unique. When people go to visit communities, they look at those questions. When people go to those communities, they go and look for things that they can't get in their own community. I mean, they're not going to buy something from Macy's or anything else because they're probably in their own store. But the interesting thing about this is, oftentimes, tourism is seasonal. So if people in their own community don't support the businesses in their area, those businesses are not going to be around in order for people to shop at the store. So just think about that. And by the way, before I get off the subject, I was doing some work with Northern Development Trust over in D.C. I don't know if you know that organization, a really great organization. And they started, I guess a couple of years ago, you're not in your head, maybe able to tell me a little bit more about it, but they started a campaign, a buy local campaign, in the particular regions that they have. I think there are like 19 different communities or something participating in them. And it's called Small Town Love. And you can Google it, by the way. If you Google Small Town Love, they should put Northern Development Trust in front of it. In my particular case, don't use a government computer. But they got this program called Small Town Love, which is really a very interesting program for buy local. It involves a number of programs to it as well. So take into that because it's in your own backyard and just look on the website. Those are really good. Oh, you know what? Before I go to it, you just sort of started me from there. There's one more thing that I want to talk about. Anybody seen this right here? I've drawn your picture from here. This is a McDonald's campaign, and essentially what they're saying is that we understand that Washington is a buy local state, and so we want to show support for the buy local. So what we've done is every 95 French fries that you eat, like 90 of them are grown from potatoes in Washington. They purchased 500,000 gallons of milk from the 500 dairy farmers in Washington, and they picked 13 million apples in the Yakima Valley. McDonald's has recognized that, hey, you're interested in buy local, we want you to support our farmers, we want you to support our state. So they did this advertising campaign. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is not because of the fact that I want you to do McDonald's. The reason I'm bringing it up is because most people think that buy local programs are all about local businesses, and that's not true. It's important to reach out to big box companies and franchises and have them participate in this program as well. The managers of those companies all work in your communities, so they'll understand and recognize how important it is to get more money in your pockets will possibly give them more service in their companies as well. So think about that when you start your organizational program. I want to do one more thing on the buy local theme here, or keeping money in your own community. This is a book that is the big buzz right now across the United States. The guy who wrote this guy named Michael Schumann. For those of you who can't see this fine print, the dollar book is local dollars, local cents, and in the small print is how to shift your money from Wall Street to Main Street. And he talks about really reinventing our whole economic system and how we can try to keep money in our community in order to have businesses grow. I mean, he does everything from talk about self-directed IRAs, which is our retirement program, because oftentimes our retirement programs, the money is taken outside and invested somewhere else. Slow munis, which are municipal bonds that communities can float in order to start businesses that you think are really important in your community. Kickstarter campaigns, Indiegogo campaigns, he talks about all those things. And even though not everything will be specifically related to things that are done in Canada, a lot of them are, and I encourage you to get the book, because it truly is a great book. Now, back to your earrings, because I skipped over it. Those are great earrings. If I were to ask you if I could have those earrings so that I could give them to my girlfriend, would you just give them to me for free? No. No, you wouldn't. Exactly. And you would say no, not because you're saying to yourself, I can't believe this guy has a girlfriend. No. It's because it's an asset of yours. It's a unique asset that you have. And just as every single person in this room has a unique asset, so too does every community. The problem is that there are too many people who don't recognize the assets in their community. They've been there so long, they just sort of, they're just flying by their eyes. Sort of reminds me of the story of Yogi Berra, who was this baseball philosopher for the New York Yankees for years and years. Yogi Berra was an overly enthusiastic baseball fan. It's the bottom of the ninth, and all of a sudden, two people from the baseball stadium jump onto the playing field, start naked, slide into home plate next to Yogi, and then run back into the crowd and get lost amongst everybody else. Well, Yogi's telling that story to his wife over dinner later on that evening, and she says to him, were they males or were they females? And he thinks about it for a little bit and says, I don't know, they were wearing bags over their heads. Now, some of you will hear that joke later on this evening, or if you just don't understand baseball, just substitute hockey for that, and it's going to be okay. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that there are too many people in communities that have bags over their head. They don't recognize all the wonderful assets that they have in order to create entrepreneurial opportunities. So how do you deal with that issue? Well, one of the ways that we've been dealing with it is working with asset mapping sessions. I don't know how many people do asset mapping sessions, but it is important to do an asset mapping session even before you do your strategic plan. And I know a lot of communities are doing this, because when I was doing my research here, I noticed that a lot of people have asset mapping sessions on their home page. But asset mapping is nothing more than bringing people together to discuss the assets that you have in your communities that may potentially be skills or entrepreneurial opportunities or things that can expand the existing businesses right here. Okay? Let's show a little video of a Canadian sort of mini asset mapping session here.
Let's get to it. This committee's job is to decide what sort of world's biggest thing to build. Brett, any suggestions? This was your idea.
Well,
Point of order.
What? Oh, yeah, this was Hank's idea, actually. How about a hand for Hank, everybody? All right, well, I was just going to say that I think we should build something that's symbolic of Dog River.
How about a big dog standing in a river?
And yet something less obvious than that.
No, let me, okay? All right, everybody, finish this sentence. Welcome to Dog River, home of the world's biggest...
We got that far an hour ago.
World's biggest gopher. Oh, Stumpwood already has the world's biggest gopher.
How big is it?
I don't know exactly, but it's said to be out of a Volkswagen.
That's a big gopher.
The world's second biggest gopher.
Dog River has always been a farming community. I think that we should build something that would show how proud we are of our agricultural heritage.
There you go, now we're cooking.
My suggestion is we should build a hoe.
World's biggest hoe.
And they certainly generate revenue.
Out of the earth, covered with topsoil.
Now it's a big dirty hoe.
I don't know if this whole thing is such a great idea. How about a big shovel?
That's almost the same thing. Jeez, Brent. First you try to steal my idea, now you're taking hers.
Yeah, Brent. Why don't you look Fitzy's girl in the eye and give her one good reason why this town can't build a great big dirty hoe?
All right. Well, you see, it's just that if no reason, man.
I say we bolt some sheet metal onto an old telephone pole.
No, the wood's too dry, it'll crack.
Crack.
I'm sure much of that asset but just out of curiosity about a show of hands, how many people were raised in a house that had a front porch? A lot of us lived in houses that had front porches, absolutely. And we love those front porches. We love those front porches because you can sit in those big old Edith Ann rockers, you can rock back and forth, and you brought your friends on those porches, and you talk to them on the porch, talk to them about what you wanted to do that day, what you wanted to do when you grew up, talk to them about your problems, you help solve those problems. They don't build houses with front porches anymore. At least not in Washington, not in a lot of parts of the United States. We need to have what I call more front porch economic development. We need to bring people together from a community and talk about your strength, talk about the assets that you have, and continue to build on those assets so that you can create entrepreneurial opportunities, you can recognize the skills that exist in your community, you can expand your existing businesses, and hopefully you'll even attract a few businesses as well. So let me just real quickly, just to get a feel for the audience right here, I want to sort of get an idea of what people are thinking, whether I'm hitting the spot or not. How many people, just by a show of hands, so they can say that they've learned at least 2 or 3 things in this presentation already? We're getting a resume. Okay. How many people are thinking to themselves, once again, by a show of hands, that how much longer is this American market going? And by the way, I didn't know how to spell A, so I Googled A. And it comes up, seriously, this is true. So it comes up with a little graphic, it's a pie chart. And 25% of the graphic, or the title of it, was people who use the word A. And 25% were Canadians, and 75% were Americans trying to be funny. So, I still use that. Okay? And just out of curiosity, once again, by a show of hands, how many people would like to buy me a drink later on? I'll take it. That sounds good. By the way, me and I got better than the scholarship fund, right? There you go. I want to switch bases here and talk a little bit of theory about you. Theory is not one of the more exciting things to talk about. But I want to talk about something called the stool theory of economic development. This is not medical terminology. But essentially, the stool theory of economic development, of course, you probably already know this. There are 3 legs that support economic development. If any of these legs don't work, you don't pay attention to these legs, then your economic development program is not going to be successful or your community won't be sustainable. And just to go over this really quickly, the first leg of the stool is community development. And community development are things that I talked about earlier, the reasons why you live in a community, you live in a community with good schools, good parks, good roads, quality of life, all that. That's community development. The second leg of the stool is business retention and expansion. And this is oftentimes when the government or economic developers will send out surveys to the businesses and say, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help you. Oftentimes considered to be the Rodney Danger field of economic development because it never gets any respect. And you know why it doesn't get any respect? Because everybody wants to do the third leg of the stool. Everybody wants to do business attraction. It's the sexy part of economic development. It's the part where you get to cut the ribbon. It's the part where you get to shovel dirt from one side of the road to the other. It's the part where you get to talk and get your picture in the paper and start talking about the number of jobs that you're going to create in your community the next 3, 4, and 5 years down the road. If communities had their choice, they would always take business attraction. It's like Halloween candy. Remember when you were a kid and you first discovered Halloween? And you figured, oh, this is great, you got to dress up in costume, go on doors, knock on doors, yell trick or treat, you get candy. It doesn't happen any other time of the year. Trust me, I've tried it. It doesn't work at all. And the only thing that these people can think of prior to Halloween is just one thing. And that one thing, get candy. It's all they think of. Maury Forman, Nestle's Crunch, Snickers, all those. Get candy, get candy, get candy. It's all they can think about. Same way in economic development. When a community hears that it's going to get economic development, there's only one thing that goes through their mind. And that one thing, get a company. All they can think about. Boeing, Microsoft, all these big companies, get a company, get a company. Well, we need to come up with a new school theory for economic development, especially rural communities. So what I'd like to do is propose a new 21st century school theory that I think will make communities, especially rural, ones very sustainable and will assist with their business attraction activities, and that's the way to go. And the first one is asset development. And when we talk about asset development, we're talking about developing assets that are important. I think there's 3 types of assets that you need to put money and invest in your community. The first is workforce. I already talked about workforce, so I'm not going to talk about that anymore. And the second is arts and culture. Arts and culture is not just about entertainment. It's about jobs. It's about revenues. You know, here's, in the United States, it's a $135 billion industry. It creates about 5 million jobs, and the money that comes into a lot of the arts and culture activities goes back into the communities so that you can continue to invest in them as well. So, Alberta does a great job of doing this, and I wanted to just throw this up, not just because it's important to see, gosh, you got 1,000 events in Alberta, you got all these performing arts centers and organizations and art galleries. But what's interesting in the top 2 lines is specifically the second one as well. Because not only do you spend more per capita than any other Canadians in arts and culture, but companies pay a great high per capita as well. And that's really important. A good painting, a great play, a sweeping symphony, a jazz concert, a museum. These are the things that broaden our minds. These are the things that enrich our imagination, and these are the things that heighten our senses. Quality of life is back in economic development right now. It didn't used to be there. People used to go to where the jobs were, but that's not happening now. The jobs are going to where the people are, and that's why it's important to have arts and culture, because this is one of the things that's the driving factor of where people decide to locate as well. Adding more foot-tapping, smile-inducing moments to our lives is good, sound public policy. And the third type of asset that I think we need to invest in is infrastructure. And I'm sort of hesitating about infrastructure because we have really had some problems with the mudslide that took place. A while back ago, we also had the schedule for the bridge fell down. And part of this problem is that we have not started to put investing money into our infrastructure. Here's a list of about 30 things that the American Society for Civil Engineers has put together that's important for a community and its sustainability. And you can see these 13 things. What's interesting is the report card they provided. This is a report card that came back through Washington, and they did them for every state. You know, what would you do if your kid came home with a report card like that? Well, you would realize that you need to invest in your kid. You need to invest in a tutor and any other services or sources that would allow him to do better. Now, what we also have is a report card was also done in Canada about 2 years ago, maybe a year or 2 ago, by a Society of Civil Engineers as well. There was a survey that took place, 22 Alberta communities participated out of 133, and this is the information that this report had. Obviously, you're on a different grading system than we are, but this is what came out of there. And municipal roads is a serious problem, to be honest with you, because the replacement cost of road infrastructure across the country is estimated in Canada to be $91 billion. That's about $7,000 per household. So we need to be aware of investing in infrastructure, and all of these things. Because these are important not only for the people in the community, but also for the people that are looking at your community as well. And by the way, don't forget broadband. Broadband is really important. It's nothing more than allowing, especially rural communities, to be able to compete with everybody else in the world. Just wires that go across the world so that you can sell your products and sell your services as well. And the second leg of the stool, by the way, is innovation and entrepreneurial development. And this is where you begin to educate and train the next generation of leaders, the next generation of entrepreneurs in your community. And notice that I put the word innovation and entrepreneurship together. And the reason I have done that because innovation has absolutely no value at all unless it is pursued by entrepreneurs. Henry Ford did not invent the automobile. What he did was to manufacture an automobile that made it more affordable for the middle class. The internet did not change the way the world worked. The commercialization of the internet did. Innovation makes no sales. No sales at all. Entrepreneurs do. So how do we do this? How do we continue to get innovation and entrepreneurship mixed together? Well, one of the ways that we want to make sure that we do this is to start once again at a very early age. We have sports camps and we have outdoor camps. We need to have entrepreneurial camps as well. One of the things that we're also doing with kids in the United States across the country is have something called National Lemonade Day. National Lemonade Day is the motto to build a stand and spark a dream. It's a program where we teach kids how to start, own, and operate their own business, how to share money, how to spend money, how to save money as well. It starts at age 4 and goes through 14. Last year, 150,000 national lemonade stands were across the United States in 36 different cities. Just this year, Google has become a co-sponsor. They're hoping next year to have 1 million lemonade stands in 100 different cities. So start at a very early age teaching kids about entrepreneurship. Now, here's a little video I think I'm going to show.
Is this made from real lemons? Yes. I only like all natural fruits and beverages, organically grown, with no preservatives. Are you sure they're real lemons? Yes. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll buy a cup if you buy a box of my delicious Girl Scout cookies. Do we have a deal? Are they made from real Girl Scouts?
No doubt a future entrepreneur as well. And once you're old enough to do that, and by the way, we want to continue to instill the whole idea of the theory behind lemonade stands as well. And these are some of the objectives they have. And I don't need to read all these. But there's one thing that's sort of left off of their objective stand, and that is fun. It's fun to build a lemonade stand. It's fun it's something that the family can do. So it's a great event. It's coming up in May. I asked, by the way, the chairman whether it was in Canada, and they said not yet. So hopefully that one day we get National Lemonade Day programs here as well. So once you move into middle school, and middle school for us is 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, then we need to continue to have entrepreneurship by helping kids retain that creative mind. When you're a kid, you know the values. I mean, you can be as creative as you can. You can have fun and make things out of an empty box. But as you get older, you get to high school, you sort of lose that creativity. We need to make sure that we maintain that creativity as well. We'll maintain it by having things like ideation programs. Ideation programs are those that help kids continue to come up with ideas. And I run ideation programs all the time. It's amazing, some great ideas that high school kids and teens at risk have as well in order to come up with ideas and continue to keep their creative juices flowing. And then when they get to high school, they should have the opportunity to be part of a mentor program so that mentors sort of can take them through the process of what it's like to own their own business, what it's like to be their own boss, what it's like to work with a group of people that have the same ideas they do. And then in senior high school, you also need to have something called business plan competition. And business plan competitions are great because the public and the private sector needs to continue to provide money in order to support those businesses so they stay in the community. And even if your kids go off to college or they start a business somewhere else, you hope they make those errors in another community as well. At some point in time, if there are business plan competitors who will come in. You keep that money in the bank for them so that they know that it's a boomerang back to their community. They'll have money in the bank to start a business in their community as well. And then later on, there's something called Global Entrepreneurship Week. Global Entrepreneurship Week essentially is a worldwide thing done by the Kauffman Foundation to help honor and celebrate and introduce entrepreneurs into the community as well. Here's a little example of a business plan competition. Quick video too.
Okay, want to start with the drink? Sure.
Big idea that I want to have in my community. And let's move on to the third leg of the stool. And the third leg of the stool is technical assistance. When we talk about the technical assistance, we're talking about a little bit more than going out, sending surveys to people and saying, I'm here from the government, we're here to help you. But technical assistance programs that are part of the public and the private sector to assist small businesses, to assist entrepreneurs with all sorts of things that they need. Entrepreneurs are good at one or two things, but they can continue to need help with other things as well. Here's let's try this.
Så ligger det kanskje flere mindre sider med laget tekst. Så når man kommer videre, så tar du tak i et ark, og så blar over, og neste side fortsetter teksten her.
Det er blar, altså.
Du blar.
Men er ikke tilbake da?
Ja, da var det blar. Her, så er tilbake til teksten også.
Ok, så slutter der, og så fortsetter du med. Når jeg skal avslutte med det da?
Ja, står du sammen permene.
Ja?
Står jeg måten her. Sånn. Da er måten her, ligger noe laget inni deg.
Jeg vil ikke miste noe teksten her. Ja, ok. For det er noe vi skal holde på med skriftruller, så tar det litt tid å markere så bra i en bøk. Ja, men det er for å gå inn. Åpner, sånn, og så var det fattere. Jeg blar frem og tilbake, og når jeg er ferdig, så bare lukker jeg den. Flott, ikke kjempe, ja. Men ikke sant? Nå er det sånn gjennom, for jeg får det.
The number one thing requested by entrepreneurs is peer-to-peer mentoring. They're looking for mentors. Set up mentor programs that are extremely important in communities. And I want to point out there are other things that peer-to-peer can do, the private sector organizations can do in order to help entrepreneurs. Everything from market intelligence to staffing assistance to export business. And I also want to point out that I saw that the ADA is working in agreement with Pulse the business retention program. Great program. It has lots of success. I think it's called Alberta Business Counts. Take advantage of that if you get a chance. Go to his session. I think he has a session to talk about. Oh, after this one. Oh, okay. Anyway, they run a great program, and I heartily endorse it and support it. And I hope you people will as well. There's one slide I want to show people, which is sort of one of my most requested graphics, at least in the United States. And I transformed this into a Canadian graphic as well. And this is called the ecosystem of Canada. Because a lot of people say, well, we don't have enough people to do all the things that need to be done in the three-level school. Well, in fact, that isn't necessarily true. Because if you take a look at the outside of the circle, those are all the things that are done in the economic development program. But if you look at the inside of the circle, it's all the people that are in a community. And almost every community in Canada, I bet, has some of those organizations in it. So you're never really alone when you do your economic development program at all. You always have somebody you're doing it. And the number one thing that you need to continue to realize in your program is that it can't be done quicker. There's no such thing as growth of a community, getting more money at the end of the day, by doing it quickly. And people go from economic development strategy to strategy more and more. You shouldn't be doing that because it doesn't matter whether it's community growth, it doesn't matter whether it's business growth or even personal growth. It takes time. For me, the story, I had a birthday not too long ago, and my kids gave me as a birthday gift. I have two kids, one who wants to be a lawyer and the other who's going to need a lawyer. These kids gave me as a gift an exercise video. Now, you're not going to see me at 5:30 in the morning doing exercise. Well, anybody that knows me knows that I absolutely hate to exercise. But my kids gave me this. They know it. They want me to give and it'll make me healthy. So I immediately took it, went downstairs, popped in the DVD player. It didn't work. There was some sort of malfunction. So I decided I was going to take care of this issue right away. So I went ahead and went upstairs, got in the car, drove to the video store. I had to stand in line at this video store. Finally got up to the counter. I put the DVD on the counter, the lady at the counter, and I said, does it work? I'm going to exchange it for something else. And she looked at the DVD and she saw this shapely figure on the cover. And then she looks at me and she says, well, honey, these things take time. So is economic development. There's no such thing as instant gratification when it comes to economic development. There's nobody that's going to come in, no magic genie that's going to come in and give you more money at the end of the day than you have at the beginning of the day. They say that there are three types of people in the community. Those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that wonder what the hell is happening. The people in this room are the people that make things happen. You make things happen because you believe in new ideas, in stimulating conversations, in strategic thinking, and you know what economic development looks like. You know that your job is not going to end just by leaving this conference. The only thing that's going to end right now